Today's training is geared at self-directing participants and employers and their employees for the Me, Via, and Supports Waiver programs. Consultants or community support coordinators of these services, call center staff are also welcome to attend. Training today is not for managed care participants or employees of those participant-directed vendor agencies. So if you are an employee of a participant-directed vendor agency, you'll need to attend the training, the agency training provided by Palco on the 14th and 15th. If you provide in-home living supports, you should attend the agency training. That will be next week on the 14th and the 15th. So if that is you and you provide in-home living supports, you will be in next week's training. So just wanted to make sure that you are here for the right training. If not, we'll see you next week. All right, just some guidelines as we go through this training today. All the lines are going to be muted and will remain muted. We'll use the chat feature for questions. I think I talked about that a little bit before, but we're going to use that chat feature for questions, and we'll have designated times during the presentation to answer those questions. I'll read a few, even if they were answered, so that some of the people on the phone could hear those as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep those questions focused to the topics that are being discussed. So unless we have talked about it in previous slides, don't get ahead of us. We might cover that topic later in the presentation, and just want to keep everything, related to what we're talking about here. So I know I haven't even introduced myself yet, but my name is Cody Waits. I'm an account manager here at Palco. I'm also a part of the EVV implementation team as a lead there. I've been doing this for about 3 years, working with Medicaid, financial management services, case management, things like that. So I've got a couple years under my belt, and this whole year of 2020, I've been working with a lot of states and programs on their EVV implementation. So this isn't my first rodeo. So Palco, you may not know a lot about us, but our mission statement is we serve people. We provide services that enable individuals to live independent lives where they are empowered to make their own choices about what's best for them. We embrace diversity of thought and the promise of new ideas honed by experience and enhanced by technology. As a leader in self-direction, we are also a national industry leader providing FMS services to 9 states, and we have 14 different programs in those states, and we're always growing. Our headquarters are in Little Rock, Arkansas, and a fact about Arkansas, this was the first state to pilot self-direction more than 20 years ago, and we were the nation's first fiscal employer agent. We tend to focus on industry standards and person-centered practices, and we've actually been providing service in New Mexico since 2017. So what is Palco's role in this transition? Well, we're going to handle enrollment, electronic visit verification, which we'll talk a lot about today. We'll be handling your payroll, accurate tax reporting and compliance, and then also in phase 2, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this presentation, we're going to open up our services for our online portal for time submission, give you some more options with reporting and other information. So kind of like what you're doing, we are taking over all of that with the time submission and reporting. And transition forms. So you may or may not know about this, but transition forms for the employer of record or employer enrollment transition packet is required. Please complete and return that to Conduit as soon as possible. We have here a date of 12/31, so please get that in as soon as possible. It really helped. I don't encourage anybody to wait until 12/31 to get those sent in. Those packets will be mailed out by Conduent shortly, so if you haven't received those, that's okay. Those will be mailed out shortly. E-signatures are actually acceptable on those EOR forms. And EORs with multiple participants, you only need to complete one packet. This is not required for vendors. This is only for employers only. This form, as well as others, will also be posted on our website. That website is listed here. It's palcofirst.com, and you'll go to the New Mexico programs from there, and you'll be able to find more forms as well. Now, we also have a transition form for employees. Now, this one is optional because we're getting a lot of the payroll information. We're getting all the payroll information. Now, if you need to update your payroll information, withholdings, direct deposit information, that's when, as an employee, you will need to complete this transition packet. So complete that only if you need to update that payroll information. This is also listed on our website and posted at palcofirst.com, and just go to that New Mexico system. I'm already starting to see some questions in the chat, and that's great. If you are posting questions in the chat, make sure and address those to everyone, so the people that are helping me in the chat, Lexi and Carol Lee, can answer those questions for you as I'm going through this presentation. All forms will be Palco forms moving forward. This will obviously not include the state and federal forms. Those will be the same, so that, you know, your W-4s, your I-9s, those are all going to maintain and be the same. But all other enrollment forms moving forward will have Palco's name on them. So, and then we often get this question about direct deposits. All direct deposit setups will designate 100% of funds to the primary account. We will not be splitting payments across multiple accounts. And this direct deposit info is being provided by Conduent. This is what kind of a preview of what your check stub will look like here. Later, when we are in our phase 2 part of this, you'll actually be able to access these online and see these and print those out on your own. But for now, we'll be sending these stubs out to you. And it has all the information that you need, including you know, the amount of hours, your rates, service dates, your net and gross for how much you'll be receiving there, any deductions, withholdings, things like that. So just wanted to give you a preview of what that's going to look like from Palco. And then some information about Palco's ID numbers. So Palco ID numbers have been sent out via mail to every employer and employee. Those letters went out last week, so you should probably start to be receiving those soon. If you haven't, it's still okay. When you receive this letter, make sure that you save that information that's on there and learn your 6-digit ID number. Those ID numbers you'll have one for participant, for the EOR, and the employer or employee. And this is a requirement. These ID numbers are important. This is a requirement to access Fiserv's Authenticare EVV systems starting January 1st. And then later in the 2021, you'll need this to access Palco's systems, their timesheet submission systems, things like that. Some other notes about the transition. So we will be implementing these services in New Mexico in 2 phases. You've probably already heard me say phase 1 or phase 2, but phase 2 will occur later in 2021 and will provide more access to Palco systems and also more EVV options like a mobile application. Payroll information is being transferred by TNT Conduent to Palco. If you need to update or change that information, like I already said, submit an employee transition packet right away. It's also our goal during this transition to make sure that you don't have any interruption in services, minimum disruption to your existing processes, and for that reason, we will be doing off-cycle payrolls for the first month to accommodate any delays that might occur in the beginning. We all know that some of these sometimes when we go through a transition like this, things fall through the cracks, or we don't turn in things on time. So what we're going to be doing is doing these off-cycle payrolls, which means after the regularly scheduled payroll, we'll be running separate payrolls after that to ensure that people are getting paid in a timely manner while we're learning from the system that we're currently in. And then all information, like I said at the beginning of this, guides, forms, packets, trainings, this presentation actually, and links to videos about this presentation will be posted to our website for your convenience. So now let's talk about what EVV is. If you haven't already been using EVV, well, EVV is Electronic Visit Verification, and it's a technology solution which electronically verifies that home and community-based services are actually delivered to people needing those services by documenting the precise time service begins and ends. And then you might be thinking, why is this all required? Why is it happening? Well, implementing EVV is actually a federal requirement. Section 12006 of the 21st Century Cures Act requires all state Medicaid agencies to implement an EVV solution to manage their personal care services by January 1st of 2021, and for all home health services by January 1st of 2023. And what they're looking for is to capture these 6 points of data. So they want to know the type of service that is being performed, the individual that's receiving the service, the date of the service, location of the service, the individual providing the service, and the time the service begins and ends. These are the 6 data points. This is what is captured by EVV, and using both types of EVV that we'll be implementing, first using the IVR telephony option, and then in phase 2 using the mobile application option. So these points of data will be captured using those. And Palco, we've partnered with Fiserv to provide clients with one of the best EVV platforms that exists nationwide. Authenticare by Fiserv is compliant with the Cures Act, so it is 100% compliant with the federal mandate. It is user-friendly and secure. And like I said, we'll be implementing EVV in 2 phases. We'll start with the telephony IVR option, and then a mobile application for smartphones and smart devices will be available later in 2021. And then a lot of times we will get questions about what services will require EVV at the start of the year. And for these services, the ones that are listed here, on the MeVia waiver, the Homemaker Direct support and Respite Standard and the in-home living supports will all need to be using EVV. And then on the supports waiver, the personal care and respite standard will also be the services that require using EVV. Now, I said this at the top, but in-home living supports are provided through an agency or an independent contractor. If you are here because of you're providing in-home living supports, you will actually be in another training. That training will take place next week on the 14th and the 15th. We'll have several trainings on those days for you to access that. All right, so we're going to pause right now for some questions. I know I've seen some questions coming in here, and I'll go back and answer some of those, or some of these have already been answered by the chat, but just in case you're on the phone, I just want to make sure that we're covering all our bases here. So I've seen a couple times in the chat if this is the correct training for EORs, absolutely. If you're an employer or an employee for the MEVIA waiver, the supports waiver, you're absolutely in the correct spot. So you're not missing out on the training, so I'm glad you're here. So let's see here. I've seen some questions about filling out the employer and employee transition packets. Again, just to emphasize that the employer transition packet absolutely does need to be filled out, and that packet needs to be in to Conduit by 12/31. I also recommend that you turn those in as soon as possible. Don't wait until 12/31 to fill out those documents. So those will be sent out in the mail to you. You should be receiving those shortly. I've seen a couple questions about Focus and what their part is in this. So Focus is still being used, but will be changing to Palco, not immediately, but later in 2021. And that transition packet that I just talked about will actually help us make that change over to Palco. I saw one question about employees also having to do a transition packet. The employee transition packet is optional. The only reason that you should fill out that transition packet is if your employee or you as an employee need to change any information about your payroll information. So if you need to change any withholdings or if you need to change your direct deposit, we can do that, and you'll need to fill out that transition packet. Also, if you haven't realized yet, this is not the Spanish training. We'll have that Spanish training later tonight, and that will be at 6 p.m. tonight. Let's see here. Those EOR, those packets will be sent out from Conduit. The EOR transition packet is not optional. It has to be done. It is a requirement. The number for the customer service line, I'll provide that here in a little bit, but you can write that down, and Lexi or Carolee will also post that information in the chat moving forward. All right, not seeing a lot of different questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward and talk about telephony and the IVR option. So what is telephony? It's a weird word. I had never heard it until this past year, so I'll tell you all about it. So Authenticare's telephony IVR software allows you to utilize any touch-tone phone to clock in and out, and it meets the criteria of the 21st Century Cures Act. Interactive voice recognition, or IVR, is sometimes referred to as telephony. It captures 6 points of data, including location, and are automatically captured when you call in. So wherever you're calling in from, it's going to capture that location, whether it's a landline phone or a cell phone. To prepare for the EVV implementation, Palco has registered the employees for EVV and provided them with a unique Palco ID. Participants will also have a unique Palco ID as well. Those will be sent out. We have sent out letters. Our letters have been sent out to you that will be providing you with those Palco IDs. So if you haven't received a letter yet, that's okay. It is on its way. And this ID is very important because it'll be used to create your shift in Fiserv's Authenticare Telephony IVR system. And again, just to reiterate, employees can call in from a landline or a mobile phone or cell phone. And using telephony is very simple. Whatever phone you're using, I recommend going to our website or getting access to the IVR instruction sheet and printing that out or having that handy so that you can see the toll-free number and it walks you through every step of the call. I'm actually going to play a call here in a few seconds here so that you can hear what that sounds like. And basically, though, the instructions that are listed here are very simple, but it's because it is a simple system. So you're going to dial that toll-free number, and you're going to enter your worker ID. And there, you're going to follow the prompts to clock in and out. Same thing when you clock out, dial that number, enter your worker ID, follow the prompts to clock out. So I'm going to go ahead and play a version of this so that you can hear for yourself what it's going to sound like.
Welcome to Authenticare, Palco, New Mexico. Enter your worker ID followed by the pound sign. To check in, press 1. To check out, press 2. Please enter your client ID followed by the pound sign. If the service is EVV Homemaker Direct Support, press 1. If the service is EVV In-Home Living Support, press 2. If the service is EVV Respite, press 3. If the service is DG Waiver Nested Group, press 4. If you are Harry Mason and you work for Desktop Agency Incorporated, and you are providing DG Waiver Respite Group for Peter T. Rico, press 1. If this is not correct, press 2. Your check-in was successful at 10:50 a.m. To return to the main menu, press 1. To end this call, press 2. Thank you for calling Authenticare, Palco, New Mexico. Goodbye.
All right, and then we'll play, it's very similar, but I'm going to go ahead and play it anyway so that you see what the checkout will sound like as well. It's very similar.
Welcome to Authenticare, Palco, New Mexico. Enter your worker ID followed by the pound sign. To check in, press 1. To check out, press 2. Please enter your client ID followed by the pound sign. Please enter your activity code followed by the pound sign. To continue without entering an activity code, press 8. If you are Harry Mason and you work for Desktop Agency Incorporated and you are providing DG Waiver Respite Group for Peter T. Rico, press 1. If this is not correct, press 2. Your checkout was successful at 10:56 a.m. To return to the main menu, press 1. To end this call, press 2. Thank you for calling Authenticare, Palco, New Mexico. Goodbye.
All right. So as you can see, it's very similar. Both times you just need to follow the prompts, and it will direct you through. If you make a mistake, you can always just hang up and call back in to do that because it won't complete until you complete the shift in the prompts there. So the number that you'll call, again, I want to refer you to that guide. Make sure that you have a copy of that guide handy because keeping that toll-free number close will just kind of ease your mind whenever you're calling in and out. It might become second nature to you after a while, and you'll remember it every time that you clock in and out. But I recommend doing that and going through that instructions. It usually takes about 1.5 minutes. But once you get used to it, you can probably fly through it and get it done in under a minute. That phone number is free to call, and it's available 24/7. And I've listed the number here on the screen. The number's also in the chat there, so it's 1-800-222-2943. Again, that's 1-800-222-2943. So any questions about IVR and checking in and the checkout process? I see there's some questions in the chat that have been coming in, so let me see if I can back up a little bit and answer some of these. A couple times, can I clock in and out multiple times throughout the day? Absolutely. We know that certain times you'll have shifts that are separated, you'll have breaks, things like that. So you'll be able to make those calls numerous times throughout the day. And unfortunately, this is federal mandate, so it is a requirement to do these services. So if you you have a cell phone or landline and you're having some connectivity issues, things like that, it's something that you might need to talk to your counselor about in case you're having trouble with that. Yeah, so somebody asked, can they use their own phone to clock in or using this? So this can be done from any phone. You can use the employee can use their phone. The employer can use the employee can use the employer's phone. Either is a good option. I see a couple questions that we'll actually address in later slides, so we'll go over that here in a second, especially like what happens if you forget to clock out. We'll go over that here shortly. And for any customer service, you're going to contact the Consolidated Customer Service Center. They'll be able to answer a lot of these questions that you're having here. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward because, like I said, I see a couple questions that are going to be answered in our next few slides. So non-EVV services. So I've already kind of stuck on this a little bit, but all non-EVV services will continue to be entered into the current focus system and will follow the same procedures with no changes. These will be all services except for the 99509 personal care services and the T1005SD respite services. So these are the services that are going to require EVV. Anything else will continue to be entered in using the current focus system and will follow the same procedures. And then approving time. So time processed with EVV IVR will not be available to approve in focus. Time paid will be passed to focus and visible on those utilization reports. If a shift cannot be captured using EVV, let's say you don't have service at the time, or just you forgot to clock out or anything like that, this shift can be manually entered in the focus system. So if that happens, or if any technical difficulties, we all know about those kind of situations. I did see a couple of questions in there about missing a clock in or a clock out. Or not having service. You can always access the focus system and manually enter those. Also, somebody with no phone service, if you live in an area that has no phone service and have been approved for submitting paper timesheets, you will continue your current process of submitting those paper timesheets. So that will help alleviate any of the questions about that. And then how does EVV shifts turn into claims? So employee is going to clock in using EVV, and then those shifts are stored in the Authenticare system. Authenticare then will transfer that data to us, Palco, and then budget validations and required utilization checks are run against the claim, and then Palco is going to be the one that processes those payments. So a few of the next steps that we're going to cover here is if you haven't turned in your employer of record enrollment packet, please do so by submitting to Conduit as soon as possible. Deadline for that is 12/31/2020. So please, I reiterate the as soon as possible thing. Do not wait until 12/31 to get those in, but that is the deadline. And if you are an EOR, you do need to fill that out. It is a requirement. If an employee wishes to change any information regarding payroll or direct deposit, they will also need to fill out an employee packet and submit that to Conduit. Same deadline there as well. That one is not required. Do only fill that out if you need to change any of that information. And beginning April 1st, you and your employee will then use your Palco IDs to log into Palco's system. That's our timesheet submission system. You'll have access to reports and pay stubs and things like that and other information. And we'll provide more training on that when those systems, right before those systems come into play. So you'll probably be hearing from me in 2021. And then also, just to give you kind of a more options things, if you need any of the information that we talked about today, including this presentation, links to a video of this presentation, we will be providing that here at palcofirst.com, and you'll go to New Mexico's program page there. The EVV frequently asked questions will be there. We actually use a lot of your questions that have been provided in previous presentations, and we're updating that as we speak. So we will have more up-to-date frequently asked questions documents on the website. The user guide that I talked about, that is absolutely a necessity. Have that handy. I think it will help you throughout this transition in this process. Like I said, these PowerPoint training slides will be on there, and any employer and employee forms will be on there as well. Also, any Medicaid forms that you need to, I've put the New Mexico Medicaid portal here so that you can have access to that. I believe that link will also be put in the chat for you to go ahead and click on if you need that information. And I'm going to go ahead and pause for questions here at the end. So if you have any questions about anything that we've covered today, please go ahead and post that in the chat. Somebody asked, how can we get a copy of this recording? That's a great question. So we actually are recording this presentation, and the link will be listed on that website, that the Palco website as well. It'll be on we have a YouTube page, and you can watch this at your convenience whenever you want. So you could, wake up in the middle of the night worrying about all this, and you can actually watch the recording to ease that anxiety a little bit. So do we begin using the phone to log in January 1st or not until April 1st? So January 1st, that's when you will be using IVR or telephony. So calling in and checking in will be done on January 1st. The April 1st date there is going to open up a few more things as you will fully transition over to Palco. It'll allow you to have an option for a mobile application. That way, if you have a smartphone or a smart device, you will be able to change and use that instead of calling in every time. That will be an option later. But EVV begins on January 1st, and you will be required to use IVR when we first start. as you all are writing some other questions here, I'm going to go ahead and move to this additional support page. So if you have questions as you're going through this, please contact Consolidated Customer Service Center. That number is 1-800-283-4465. And press 5 for assistance there, and that should get you into the queue. Then anything that you need, resources, forms, things like that, that's where you're going to go to Palco's website, and that's palcofirst.com/New Mexico. And any enrollment paperwork that you're sending, please send that to Conduit. We've listed their in the chat, but also here their fax number, the email address that you'll need to send those to, or the mailing address that you wish to send those to. If you don't get your packet in the mail, you would call the Consolidated Customer Service Center. But those are, being sent out, so give it some time, and if you don't get those, then go ahead and give them a call, and they should be able to provide you with that. But there's always the option, if you don't get the packet, you can always go online to our website and avoid the customer service, calling into customer service, and just print that out yourself. E-signature is allowed on those, so you can provide that all online and not have to worry about printing that out, and just send the email or email that in as well. All right. How many classes do we need to attend? So if you've been through this training, you only have to come to this training once. And if you want to watch, like I said, if you need to watch the video to go over anything again, I highly recommend that. So I see a question about moving to a different location, but will provide services from that location. How do we get this approved? Not entirely sure if this will answer the question, but I'll go ahead and say that IVR and telephony can be used from any location. So wherever those services are being provided, that's where you'll need to call in from, and then that's where your location will be captured there. So I don't believe you'll, unless you are updating any information on your, your employee information or employer information, which can also be done through those packets, those transition packets. Mileage will not be covered using EVV, so you would continue to use the system that is currently in place for you. Would we still be responsible to fill out the paper timesheets after using EVV? So you will, if you are using EVV for these services, you will not have to worry about those paper timesheets. So these two services that I discussed earlier in this presentation, if you're using EVV to clock your time in for that, you won't need to use the paper timesheets anymore. Somebody asked, we can print out the EOR transition forms and email them to Conduit. Yes, that is what you can do. Any more questions here? Somebody asked, when will we get our ID numbers? And those are being sent out to you as we speak. So letters were sent out late last week, and so it's only Tuesday. So I'm sure that those will be arriving to employers soon. There's employers will get a letter, employees will get a letter, and the ID numbers will be in there. Community support is still Focus Online. I believe that is going to be the Consolidated Customer Service Center, and that's where you're going to be calling for any support there. Only the employee has to call in. That is correct. The employee will be the one that using EVV. So at this time, the employee will be calling in to check in and check out of their shifts. In the future, later in 2021, they'll be able to use a smart device, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone, to use the mobile app. I saw one that was, are the client ID and Palco ID the same thing? So in this case, yes, this client ID, Palco ID, is going to be the same thing. It'll be a 6-digit code, and usually it'll have a 0 at the front of it, but it'll be a 6-digit code, and we'll provide that for you. All right. So I haven't seen any new questions rolling in, so I just want to, okay, I see another question. Somebody says, I have a broken schedule. I have to call in and out 3 times a day. So depending on your shifts and what you're working, you will have to clock in and out for every one of those shifts. So if you have 3 separate shifts throughout the day, you'll have to clock back in, clock out. It would be like if you worked at an hourly job and you took a break and then you came back, you would have to clock in and out for those as well. So. All right. Well, I just want to thank everybody so much for attending today's training. And we will be hosting more of these trainings this week. Like I said earlier, there is a Spanish-only version that will be happening tonight at 6 p.m. It'll be going over the same information. So that will be there. And then there are other dates and times throughout the rest of this week that you can attend these if you would still like to and ask certain questions and things after you thought about it. So. The training there is listed in the chat. If you'd like to attend any of those, please feel free. And I just, again, want to thank you so much, and we look forward to working with you in the future.